Let's just keep it real, Texan fans. Sunday is a must-win game. So we'll take a deep dive into the first two games for the Houston Texans and cold takes with Cole Thompson. Stick around.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. And today's show is all about, oh my gosh, if they don't win a game Sunday, the season is over with. And I think that's some okay conversation to have. We're going to look at a deep dive through the first two games for the Houston Texans, and then Cole Thompson joins the show. We'll dive into his cold takes, why this is a must-win game for the Houston Texans, and his thoughts on Nick Caley, CJ Stroud, their relationship, and what's going on in terms of where the finger should be pointed for blame, right? But today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texan podcast is for our everydayers from the Himalayas. Thank you for coming back to continue to listen to myself, your Texans credential media member, and football analyst John Hickman. New timer to the show. Thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, through two games, let's take a look at some of the numbers. The Texans have faced 74% zone defense compared to 25% man defense. And when I think of how Houston has had issues against the defense moving the ball forward, I look at the 3 downs for Houston. CJ Stroud on those downs. First down, 70% completion percentage, 128 yards, 1 TD, the lone TD of the season for CJ Stroud to Nico Collins, 1 sack, 3 first downs. Second down, the numbers dropped just a little bit in terms of completion percentage, but the yardage has gone up through the first two games, 185 yards through the air. Now, this is what I find interesting. 10.8 yards per attempt, nearly 11 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns. The 1 interception CJ Stroud has thrown, that was to Jaden Higgins, and that was taken out of his hands. 2 sacks, 9 first downs. Now, look at that number, 10 yards per attempt. Well, a lot of why that number is as high as it's been because Houston has faced a lot of second and long, which has led to a lot of third and long situations. And that number, that completion percentage number has dropped nearly 20%, 23% actually, 45% completion percentage on third down, only 20 yards on third down. You're not going to win no games when you're only getting 20 yards on third down. And that's why Houston has been abysmal in third down situations throughout the year. Looking at some of the third down completion percentage for Houston through two games, it has been, looking at these numbers, 14 of 18, 22.2%. Opposing teams, they are nearly at 50% completion percentage on third down. Again, 20 yards on third downs, 4.4 yards per attempt, 3 sacks on third down, 2 first downs garnered on third down. And again, the sack rate goes up, a 21.4% sack rate. Everything the Houston Texans do good on those first 2 downs offensively, it goes down. Everything the Houston Texans do bad on those first 2 downs, it goes up on third down. That's where the imbalance has been for the Texans offense. And now look at pressures per down for the Houston Texans. So first, second, and third down. First down, 6 pressures. Second down, 12 pressures. And that has led to a lot of third and long, along with the penalties, of course. Third down, 8 pressures. The average time to throw for CJ Stroud, 2.7 on first down, 3.4 on second down, 2.8 on third down. And the blitz percentage faced per down, 30%, 16%, 26%. Now, given the pressure numbers, there has been improvement in terms of game by game through 2 games for the Houston Texans offense. Well, what changed? Okay, Ed Ingram returns back to the starting lineup. That moves Titus Howard back over to right tackle. Not Laremy Tunsil. He's in Washington. Ariante Ursery is shifted back to left tackle. Now, granted, Laken Tomlinson and Jared Patterson against the Bucks, those were the weak links. Houston gets Jake Andrews back, but the average time to throw against the Rams 2.7, against the Bucks 3.3. The pressures allowed against the Rams 14 compared to 12 against the Bucks. The blitz percentage 17.6% against the Ram, 33.3% against the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers were throwing guys out there, but you saw the Houston Texans offensive line respond better in week 2 than they did in week 1. Also, the improvement in yards before contact per rush improved in week 2 compared to in week 1. Houston got to get more Woody Marks attempts out there, and also a lot of that yards before contact per rush has to do with the Nick Chubb touchdown, which the conversation and talking point throughout the week has been, did the Bucs let him score? Whether or not they did, that helped the Houston Texans advance numbers, and it also put Houston in a position to have a shot to win the game. Until that point, they hadn't scored a touchdown since the first quarter. So whether you guys want to say he should have just fell down and Houston played for the 3, I think because this is a defensive team, they take the touchdown, and they rely on their defense. Now, with the amount of zone Houston has faced through the first 2 games, a lot of that has been cover 3. And we haven't seen Houston do a very good job just consistently attacking the weaknesses in cover 3. Again, got to get more Woody Marks out there. Christian Kirk returns to the lineup, but in week 1 to week 2, they did a better job. The yak yards nearly doubled from game to game. Also, the clean pocket time to throw average also nearly doubled from game to game as well. 73 yak yards in game 1 compared to 124 yak yards in game 2. You know the biggest difference in those 2 games was they got Woody Marks involved in the passing game, but then also just utilizing the running back screen, which was executed almost to perfection in both games, against the Buccaneers, and then Woody Marks just using his talents to beat Savasier Dennis for a big game on the left side of the field. This is the alarming number that I think Houston needs to improve on, and hopefully they improve on it against the Jacksonville Jaguars. 32.1% of Houston's offensive plays have resulted in 0 or negative plays offensively. That's a number that needs to decrease, especially when we see how that has impacted the Houston Texans on 3rd down. Now, on the opposite side, we got Cole Thompson giving his cold takes and why he knows this is a must-win game for the Houston Texans. Stick around. We got more Texas talk on the opposite side. Ladies and gentlemen, who delivers on Saturdays? Of course, it's DoorDash. The weekend is here. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving money and saving more every time you order. These players deliver when it matters the most. Let's break it down. I'm giving it to, even though it came in a loss, Danielle Hunter got busy. 2 sacks against the Bucs, right? A lot of run stops. That was a performance for him that we all wanted to see, simply because it put him over the 100 sack for his career mark. When the pressure was on, Danielle Hunter, he stepped up. When the pressure was needed to get after the quarterback, Danielle Hunter stepped up, came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, year after year, season after season, this performance was not a fluke. Danielle Hunter is on his street. That's how you get to 100 sacks. Year after year, you're putting in work. And just like Danielle delivered for the Texans, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it all up, and you can save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Order today for your college game day experience. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo code through November 8th. Plus, ladies and gentlemen, let's add a little bit more excitement to your weekends. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The over-under right now for the Houston Texans Jaguar game is sitting at 1.5, and the over-unders on points scored is at 43.5. You do with that information as you need to do with that information. FanDuel makes betting fun and easy to fit however you like to bet. Player props, building same game parlays, even jumping in live as the action unfolds makes every moment more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So, ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back, Locked On Texan fans, listeners, and viewers. Texans got a game this Sunday, and it is a must-win game, so it's time to have some cold takes with Cole Thompson. I love the play on the name. Brother, welcome to the show.
It's okay, Texans fans. See, I did not hold it against you or harbor resentment when you came for me in the comments section saying, how dare he talk like our team is not going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl this year or compete for an AFC conference title. Am I allowed to gloat? Like, am I? Because I did say that they were going to beat Los Angeles. I thought it was going to be a very close game into the end. Didn't happen. But I also said that Tampa was going to win because Baker Mayfield was going to show on out. And he kind of did. Like, what am I supposed to do? You said it 0-2. You're 100% right, Hickman. This is 100% a must-win game for Houston. And I still think the best is still ahead of them. But Texans fans, at Mr. Cole Thompson, you just want to give me a quick follow over there. You can write your apology out. I'm sorry for ever doubting you on when you said this team is good enough to go to the divisional round again and not the Super Bowl. Because right now, this looks like a team that may not even make the postseason.
Yeah, it's scary for Houston. It is a must-win game. And why is it a must-win game, Cole? Like, they have a very tough October schedule where they play some damn good football teams. And not only are they playing some damn good football teams, them themselves are not a damn good football team.
Yeah. The other
thing is, October, Baltimore, Seattle, 49ers, and then they go into the first week of November against Denver. How this team has been performing, it could very well be 0-4. Yeah. Right. So the next two games are must wins for Houston.
The other thing is that right now, Indianapolis could easily take a 1-0 lead or 1-0 lead in the division. And they're sitting at 2-0. And whether or not we want to give a lot of flack for, who he is, Indiana Daniel Jones is balling right now. He's making the right plays at the right times. The offensive personnel with Jonathan Taylor is making some bolts. You're seeing the offense. You're seeing Tyler Warren fit in as that tight end security blanket defensively. Cameron Bynum has been one of the most underappreciated signings of the entire offseason. So it's for you. You look at it from the perspective of, well, Indianapolis has to take on Tennessee this weekend. Even though Tennessee maybe does have something at quarterback with Cam Ward, the rest of the roster is completely up for debate on what they are. They're probably going to win that game. You at least want to set yourself in a position to where you feel like you're right alongside Indianapolis, despite the record sitting at 3-0 and 1-2. That to me is more important because it's very easy to fall into the trap of going to Duval, going to a place that you have won 12 out of the last 15 times, won 7 straight years in a row, end the streak because of Trevor Lawrence has a better day than CJ Stroud, and all of us sit here and go, well, what's the point at this moment? Like, where is rock bottom? Is rock bottom here? Is there further in rock bottom? Do we have to lose to Cam Ward at home for this to be truly a season to forget? Like, what is actually on display? That's where we're at. So for a morale standpoint, you played close against 2 playoff teams. You've made things interesting in the fourth quarter against 2 playoff teams. 2 teams I think are going to go back to the playoffs this year. It's a little bit different when you're going up against a team that finished with the number 5 overall pick, trade up to go get Travis Hunter, and also took forever to hire their next head coach because they were so incompetent of an organization to realize Trent Baalke is a terrible GM and nobody wants to work with him. So we got to fire him just to hire Liam Cohen and start over the GM process. So it's just an even more big slap in the face.
And I think for Houston, it's very important to, like you said, get out to a head start in the AFC South, where when it all comes down, if you win the division, you make the playoffs, right? Also for Houston, you mentioned they made things interesting, close in the fourth quarters of both games, but I want to get back to that Bucs game, man. Hadn't had an opportunity to talk to you about it. What is going on with the Houston's offense. Like, we'll dive more into Stroud and Caley. So let's keep it over there. What's going on with the Houston's defense? 19 missed tackles.
That's shocking to me. Like, even for me, that was where it was kind of like, you figured there has to be something that's going wrong. And honestly, what's interesting is that you hear D'Amico Ryans talk about it. They have one day a week where they are allowed to have full pads on and they tackle. And in the closed session of the media process, they do tackle. So if you're practicing tackling, then what's the issue here? Is it the over pursuit of angles? Is it just the inability to be able to wrap on up? The thing that was so bothersome is that you heard D'Amico Ryans.
It was both.
In the Bucs game, you heard D'Amico Ryans post game talk about how they had practiced and they had preached all week long that this was a game where you could not afford to do the arm tackle or the big like shoulder hit against a Bucky Irving or a Baker Mayfield, because both of them are just going to bounce right off of it, keep their footing in space, and then respond and get extra yardage. Or even worse, and here's the part that really is so frustrating when you look at it from a tackling perspective. There are teams out there and there are players out there that just seem to luck their way into yards. So let's say that you're trying to tackle Bucky Irving and you deliver the shoulder blow. He's going down, but he's going down tumbling forward, which means he's still gaining 3 or 4 yards. So it's a missed tackle. And it's now from what should have been a 2nd and 7, a 2nd and 3. Like, that's
Same
where the
with
problem.
Baker Mayfield. Yeah.
And that's Baker Mayfield too. The pursuits were all over the place. That was where I had a bigger issue. You go back and watch the Emeka Egbuka touchdown. And Kalen Bullock did not have a good day. Kalen Bullock had a very bad day.
It's been bad for him the first 2 games of the year. Bad eyes, bad anticipation, bad angles. And they credit a PFF gave that touchdown to Kamara last year. He was tripped on that play.
Yeah.
But I felt like, hey, Kalen Bullock, if you just come down at the right angle,
yes,
that's a stop.
Okay. So, yes, the touchdown's going to go against Kamara because of who was he lined up with in coverage at the initial point. That would have been Emeka Egbuka. But go back and watch that play. Here comes Kalen Bullock.
With a high tackle.
Full on, high top, and then slowly starts to turn inwards rather than meet him at the point of attack. So now he's trying to run with him to bring him down instead of just meeting him head on. You stop a play. So the pursuit of angles, that was one that was really bad. The 4th down stop by Henry To'oTo'o on Baker Mayfield. If you take a better angle to the football, that's a sack. I mean, Houston still has had a very good defensive game plan in terms of being able to win at the point of attack. Their defensive line is getting after offensive tackles. Like, yeah, we can talk about how, Tampa was able to win a football game without Luke Gedeke and Tristan Wirfs, but keep in mind, Houston still pressured Baker on 38% of dropbacks, and they had 3 sacks in the day. And they also had 8 quarterback hits. So they're still getting in the backfield. Just the problem is that when you get the ball out, when you have a timely thrower like Mayfield that's able to read the field, process pretty quickly what's on his disposal, and then deliver a strike, you have to make initial contact, and the Texans just were arm tackling. They were going through the motions. It felt like that last week. The reason why Houston wasn't able to get a win was because Puka Nacua just was unguardable in that matchup. This week, it felt like Houston just didn't want to show up defensively to make those critical stops.
Yeah, it was frustrating to watch. And then now you look at back-to-back weeks where in the first game, 11 penalties. They cut it down in the second game, but 3 of those penalties allow for a first down. And now the talk of the town, when you don't win and you lose in some people's eyes, discussing manners, and then your team is undisciplined, hands start to get pointed. Fingers start to get pointed, excuse me.
Yeah.
And fingers are being pointed at CJ Stroud. Is he the guy? Fingers are being pointed at D'Amico Ryans. Is he the coach for the future? Fingers are being pointed at Nick Caserio. If this thing goes down, how it could potentially go down, in your opinion, because this is a must-win game, who would be this guy has to be moved on from? For me, it's Nick Caserio.
The scapegoat's going to be Nick Caley because of it's a new offensive personnel. It's a new guy coming on in. We hear about the pre-snap motion being such a big factor in the offensive personnel underneath Sean McVay. He comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree over the last 2 years, and the Texans ranked 31st in pre-snap motion. So there's going to be a lot of people that will say if this offense doesn't show a lot of pre-snap motion, and we're watching as Los Angeles is finding success with it, and Cincinnati is finding success with it, and Green Bay is finding success with it, and all these other offensive minds that have spent time underneath Sean McVay are finding success with the pre-snap motion, and Caley's like, I'm going to do it my way, he's going to be the scapegoat. The problem is Nick Caserio, in my opinion.
But they can't fire him. They can't move on
what
from
are you
him.
supposed to do? You're supposed to fire a GM that has led you to back-to-back AFC South Division titles and wildcard round wins 3 games into the season.
They can't move on from Nick Caley.
No.
That would be malpractice. They can move on from Nick Caserio.
I think you'd have to wait a little bit longer. But what I will say, and what is the problem?
No, listen, we old school in that manner. I will say they got Ed Ingram back for week 2. They moved Erstry back over to left tackle. They moved Titus Howard back to right tackle. And the numbers improved against the Bucs. They had more time to throw. CJ Stroud had more time to throw and face less pressure. Not a big number. It was very minor, but improvement altogether. My biggest issue with the offensive line before we move forward is I don't think that they really took the competition at left guard as seriously as they should have. I felt like throughout the preseason and training camp, Juice Scruggs had improved enough to compete with Lincoln Thompson for left guard. Now, when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on just the process and progress where Stroud and Nick Caley is in their relationship to this point and how it's impacted the Houston Texans overall. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. They are a lot of good businesses out there, certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, especially over here in my area, whether it's the local spots, the bar spots packed on game days, the coffee shops that know your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives together. Listen here, I want to take time to shout out Burger Fresh, the best burgers over here in the northeast area of Houston, Texas. In my opinion, in my neighborhood, come alive every Saturday and Sunday during football season, especially on Friday nights during high school football season. Everyone's team color is in that place. The energy is incredible, and it feels like the entire block is coming in for a good burger, but also cheering together. It's the kind of place where you walk in and everyone knows your name. The staff are like family, and they've been serving the community for a few months here. They're new to the area, but they are the best burgers in town. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million businesses in neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Closing out today's episode with what the hell is wrong with the offense, and just your thoughts on the progression of the Stroud and Nick Caley relationship. And really quick, you missed the Friday. It was a bubble practice, but you was out there that Saturday.
Yeah.
And I didn't see CJ Stroud as enthused, as energetic, or as in command, or as just taking control of an offensive practice. Now, granted, I thought to myself, it's a little weather outside. Maybe it's because they're in the bubble. But he was doing a lot of underhand throws and just not delivering or taking it as seriously as a lot of us may have wanted him to take it. Then I saw it on Saturday as well. But it seems like it's been a slow progression to get to whatever the final stage looks like between both of them. How much is that on Stroud? How much is that on Caley? Or is it on anybody at all? Is it just a work in progress?
It's 50-50. I mean, you're a new offensive coordinator, first-time play caller, trying to get acclimated to your new quarterback and trying to make sure that you're making all the right reads at proper times. That way you put your offense in a position to be successful. But also, you don't want to ruffle the feathers of the organization when there is a franchise quarterback here, and maybe he is not afraid to be a little bit nonchalant in practice. So you don't want to get too hard down on him, because if it leads to frustrations on the field and it translates over to the actual live games, it ends up hurting your side. But for CJ as well, I understand it's a new offense, and this is where I have a problem with Texans fans. Not all Texans fans, because there are some out there, and I think that there's a problem on both sides. Number one, CJ Stroud, if you want to think, is not the answer at your quarterback. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry, but you've already tried to figure out that, you are blessed to have a quarterback of his potential at this level. You are. So he is your long-term quarterback. You're not going to get much better than him unless you truly hit reset, which would mean probably struggling for 2 years, trading him and getting significant draft capital in return. and then still struggling over that span and maybe even getting a new head coach in the process with an offensive mind.
Without a good quarterback in sight coming out of college, might I add.
Yeah, let's throw that in there. Yeah, you want to go after Tommy Castellanos or Garrett Nussmeier right now, who would probably be at the same level of thought as I did when it came with Cam Ward, who I did not believe was a good quarterback. In fact, if you told me going into the year, where did Cam Ward rank among quarterbacks that were qualified and potential? So we also throw in that big P word, not pedigree, but potential, what you could be. I'd still have him as a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL. That's how low I am on Cam Ward. So it's not like you're finding the gold with a new quarterback coming on in via the draft and everything's going to go happy, hunky-dory for you. But also, we have to take it from the other side of things. It's year 3 for CJ Stroud. This is your surroundings. This is what you're given. This is what you have at your disposal. It's up to you to make the best of a bad situation. It is. Because Joe Burrow plays behind a mediocre offensive line every single year. Still threw for 5,000 yards last season. Does it help to have 2 very competent receivers in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Absolutely. But he still is running for his life half the time. He didn't have a sufficient run game the way that CJ Stroud had last year with Joe Mixon. He didn't have neither one had a security blanket at tight end last season. So there's a lot of faults that we can talk about when it comes to, hey, there are things that he's got to get better at, but there's things out of his control. Right. But there are things that more importantly are in his control, like making the worst of a terrible situation. And going through the motions on a Thursday practice or a Friday practice, it may not seem like a big deal because of truly it isn't, and you don't want to get anybody hurt, which is why I'm not putting too much of a stake into it. But have a little bit of pride. Have a little bit of sensitivity, have a little bit of understanding that you are the quarterback. People follow by your example. So if you're taking it half-ass, or if you're not looking like that you want to be there or fully go through the actual motions, why would your 3rd string defensive lineman? Why would your 2nd string linebacker? Why would your backup off tackle want to be there?
A lollygag.
Exactly. Lollygag. And by the way, that was your word that you decided to point out. We were lollygagging.
Right after the game.
Right, but this is you going into week 2's practice, lollygagging, then why is anybody going to believe that change is inevitable? It's a middle ground thing. And here's the thing that also needs to be make sure that is properly said. Everybody deserves blame right now. It's not all on CJ. It's not all on Nick Caley. It's not all on Nick Caserio. It's not all on D'Amico Ryans. Hindsight is 2020. And it's why when, you asked D'Amico, hey, would you consider going for taking the points on that 4th down when you're unable to score at the 1-yard line 3 consecutive plays in a row? And he goes, no, we just want to try and punch it in. Right. But looking back at it, probably knowing how horrendous your offensive line was protecting your quarterback and how
I'm not mad. I wasn't mad at that.
Right. But how inaccurate the 2 passes were to Nico Collins, I maybe would have taken the points. And I'm not just trying to say that you should have taken the points because I completely understand in that moment you go for it. But looking back, hindsight 2020, you take the points, you win the football game. I mean, that's just the bottom line here. You do win the football game because instead of it being 20-19, it's 22-20. So, I mean, again, it's just little things like that do go in your favor that can go backwards. Everyone deserves blame right now. There's not one person that stands out that's like, oh, he is the sole proprietor of why everything has gone south down in Houston.
And I think with CJ Stroud, man, it's been completely unfair in some areas how we've judged him because we judge him a lot on how he's operating under pressure.
Right.
And he operated under pressure throughout all last season and operated under pressure through 2 games. And again, it got better in week 2. And I think that the offensive line play will continue to improve as they get guys back and healthy at their spots. But when you have a quarterback that operates under pressure so much, it kind of skews the views on him a little bit of what he can and can't do. And this is why, when Nick Caley not utilizing motion to a higher extent or, still having CJ Stroud with a lot of these longer routes, in-breaking routes, it's kind of like, at what point do you look at the pressure that your quarterback has been operating and studying from 2024, now the first 2 games of this year, and say, I have to make a change in terms of play calling to at least get him into a rhythm, which in those first 2 drives, CJ operated at a rhythm, especially that first drive against the Bucs. And then throughout the game, they settled back into bad habits, and that hurt them a lot.
Hey, John, what else happened on those first 2 drives? Who else was out there on those first 2 drives? Do you remember who was out there on those first 2 drives? What?
Was it Nico?
No, Nico was out there. Nico's out there for most drives. Did you know who was out there for those first 2 drives? Made a couple plays out of the backfield. In fact, had one of the more explosive plays.
Was it the rookie?
Was it one Mr. Woody Marks? Here's a big question that I have at this point for the Texans.
Yes.
And you can't use this anymore. You can't use this anymore.
Yes.
He's not out there. Why are we playing Dare Ogunbowale and Justin Watson when you drafted Woody Marks, Jaden Higgins, and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel all throughout the top 130 picks?
Jaden Higgins averages 20 yards per catch. Jalen Noel, electric on punt returns, and he just needs to get the ball in his hands on offense to make a difference. And again, Woody Marks, a 30-yard pickup out of the backfield.
His best asset coming out of college was freaking catching the ball out of the backfield. That was what he was known for at Mississippi State and USC. And you're having Dare Ogunbowale be your third down pass catching back on most drives. Why give up a premier pick in the top 100 in next year's draft for him to play less than 15 carries a game? Like, I'm sorry.
I'll tell you why. I got an answer for you. I've suffered through it for the past 15 years.
I know why.
I'll tell you why. It is the
Patriot way.
But in this honestly, like that play against Savasier Dennis and the Houston Texans offense for the past 2 years, they're actually dating back to 2023. They don't do a good job of consistently attacking opposing defenses' weaknesses. Like opposing offenses is going to attack Jalen Petrie if he's in the slot, right? Like people target that. Houston doesn't do a good job of that. What I found most disappointing, and I'll say this before we close out, is they ran a lot of cover 3, especially on early downs, and that left the underneath of the field open consistently.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, hey, he just ate it up. He just balled out on the play. Get him the ball some more. Hey, Jalen Noel and his speed. Granted, I think what they're looking for is guys that understand kind of when and when out on some of those routes, option routes or whatever, and how to sit in zones. But you got to get some of these guys on the field to let them do what they do best. And that is what I think has hurt the Houston Texans the most offensively.
The problem is that when you ask a question like that, what do we need to see more from the rookies to get higher rep counts? What are we missing in practice that's not allowing them to get on the field? You get a cop-out answer. And that's like the frustrating part because of, is it actually what we're seeing on those small glimpses, like the highlight moment, and the rest of practice, they're still making mistakes. They're still not getting acclimated to the personnel. They're losing their battles in one-on-one matchups. Like, if that's the case, so be it, but at least you have an answer. The good news is that you get Christian Kirk back this week, and that's going to be massive, I think, for the slot.
Barrios as well.
I think what's going to be really interesting is that you already brought this up, a lot of underneath routes. The way that CJ is getting protected at this point, the way that the offensive line is basically giving you a 3-step drop back, and then you have to deliver, and you want to be able to make a proper throw, because there were 2 or 3 throws where he was just throwing off his back foot and it looked ugly. Like, it just looked straight up ugly on a pass. And luckily one of them was a catch, but still, this is one of those games where the dink and dunk may be boring and blah, and it may not be enticing for what is the explosive offense. Does it work? Does it work? That's all you care about in this game. Like, let's make some things abundantly clear. The Texans have owned Jacksonville in Jacksonville for the last 7 years. They've owned Jacksonville in Jacksonville really since 2010. They own the series over Jacksonville. This is a very lopsided affair in the grand scheme of the Texans versus the Jaguars since circa 2002. There's a bit of pride to be in this game. And also, you got to remember that we're seeing the way that Jacksonville has made the adjustments offensively. Travis Etienne looks like a night and day different running back in Liam Cohen's system. Wide receivers, though, in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter are not making plays. Like, the number one receiver right now in Jacksonville in terms of catches and targets that equal each other, very few drop balls and very few overshots, is De'Ami Brown. Like, the guys that you expect to be the household names out in Duval are not hitting. And your defense has 2 corners that can eliminate both of them, and potentially a safety in CJ Gardner-Johnson that could take away De'Ami Brown. So the only thing that you really have to worry about at this point is Trevor Lawrence finding a highlight play or Travis Etienne and the ground attack, which, again, you have a good defensive line. So it's like, this is one of those games where, regardless of if the dink and dunk is boring, if it's successful, guess what's going to happen? You're going to move the chains, you're going to walk away with points, and you're going to have a shot to win this football game. And honestly, winning a football game solves a lot of issues and stops the finger pointing for at least a week. And then you should win against, I think, Tennessee the next week. And then you go into Baltimore at 500. And I'm not saying that you're going to win at Baltimore, but crazier things have happened in the world of the NFL. You could have a great defensive game plan that eliminates both Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and you force him to win through the year. He still might, but at least you feel better and more confident about where you are sitting at 2-2 than sitting at 1-3 or 0-4. So just
that is
boring. Boring is successful. Boring keeps you employed. Sometimes not making the big leap gets you a new contract for a year or two.
And also, that is a recipe for bringing the defense up, and then maybe you get those deep shots that CJ Stroud loves so well. That's Cole Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Cole, let everybody know where they can find all of your great work on social media and Texans Wire.
TexansWire.com. If you want to check out all of our great content found, we got previews, we got updates, we got everything coming your way today and tomorrow. We'll have instant reactions after the game, regardless of if the Texans start off at 1-2 or 0-3. And if you're bored on a college football Saturday, you can come join me at SEC Unfiltered right here on YouTube. 3 live streams all throughout the day, 1 at 2, 1 at 6, 1 at 9:30. We're going to be going. We're going to be talking about college football. We're going to be talking about potentially maybe the next quarterback for the Houston Texans because so many people just cannot stand CJ Stroud and how bad he's playing. Taylor Green from Arkansas. Guess what? Numbers 13 overall pick. Welcome to Houston. CJ, get out of here.
Oh, my goodness. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your audio podcast. And peace. We got a game tomorrow.